Well, the ATL having a full circle moment. Remember not too long ago firing the head coach Raheem Morris and their GM Terry Fontenot and maybe trying to wipe the slate clean and start over when it comes to 2026 in the Falcons. How do you do that? You bring back a guy you drafted third overall back in 2008, Matt Ryan. One of our family members, of course, now the president of the Falcons, looking to get them back into maybe those postseason runs that he had when he was QB1 of the Falcons. Of course, Matt talking today and maybe giving us the direction in which the Falcons would go in 2026.
To the Falcons fans, my mission since I was drafted has never changed. You know, it is to help this organization do everything it can to be champions and to win championships. And, you know, there is a sense of unfinished business of, you know, we were close at times and we had some success here and there. But I truly believe we're going to get there and have full faith in the people that we have in this building and the folks that are going to be coming into this building are going to help us get there.
Look at him, talking like a seasoned vet, franchise QB, MVP. Yeah, he has all those. But take a look at that most consecutive losing seasons sandwiched between the Jets and the Panthers. Panther has 8 of those things, but somehow they got in the postseason. Jets still trying to find their way with 10, and the Falcons right there tied in the same division with the Panthers. All right, for more of this, my guy Ryan Wilson and boy R-Dub. Let's get into this, of course. Matt Ryan, a family friend, now from a distance here. He has some business to take care of. But your thoughts, though, of course, of him as the president of the Falcons, trying to get them back to those winning ways.
Hey, Brandon, good to see you as always. It makes sense, right? And we've seen this in recent years, even longer than that. John Elway went from the field and then came back as GM. John Lynch has done the same thing for the 49ers. Both those franchises extremely successful. We're seeing Matt Ryan as director of football operations, so he will be above on the org chart, the GM and the head coach. Even our buddy Rick Spielman would help in terms of consulting on teams needing GMs and needing head coaches, and of course he parlayed that into a nice little gig with the Jets as well. So there's a track record of that happening, but at the end of the day, Brandon, you need two things. You need a franchise quarterback, and you need to nail the head coach in terms of the new hire. We've seen that in recent years. What the Houston Texans did it in 23. DeMeco Ryans was the head coach. They brought in C.J. Stroud, number 2 overall pick. That team has gone to the playoffs every year since, won at least 10 games every year since. The 2024 Washington Commanders, Rick helped him hire Adam Peters, the GM, and they drafted Jaden Daniels. When they were healthy, they were lights out. And this New England Patriots team has been pretty special with Mike Vrabel coming back home, and of course, second-year quarterback Drake May has a chance to be the MVP. Those are the most important things. Matt Ryan can say all the things we've heard him say in this press conference, and those are great. But at the end of the day, without those things, you might be having a lot of those press conferences introducing new head coaches and new GMs.
Let's break this down because you brought up some good points here. The QB situation, also the GM, and also the new head coach. Well, let's go the QB direction because that's Matt's old stomping grounds there. You have Michael Penix, of course, drafted him 8th overall last year. But Kirk Cousins at 180, they restructured that deal. Is that situation something that Matt should address first if we're thinking about it, just given, of course, his past history?
Yeah, so that's going to be the little dance you're going to have to do between now and getting the head coach GM in place. In these interviews, you're going to have to ask the question, and it should be brought up if you're the interviewee, how you feel about Michael Penix Jr. going forward, how you liked him coming out of Washington a few years ago in the draft, whether you thought he was worth a top 10 pick or not, the injury history, what you've seen on tape the last season and a half. He obviously had that ACL injury, the third ACL injury now in his football career. And look, you got to be frank. If you don't think Michael Penix Jr. is a guy, there is no reason to continue to roll with Michael Penix Jr. You got to rip the Band-Aid off and start fresh. Will that set you back a year or two? Maybe, but it also might be a situation, as I just mentioned, with the Houston Texans or the Washington Commanders, where you get it right year one and you hit the ground running. So that's going to be the most important thing. I thought Michael Penix Jr. was a first-round talent. The concerns were injury-related, and here we are. So I think they have to figure that out in the course of interviewing these GMs and head coaches so everyone's on the same page once the first day of school, so to speak, starts, when now all the new GM there and the new head coach walk into that building in Flowery Branch.
Let's talk about the coaches there because, you know, the conversation always comes up, and you have this as well when you're talking about the draft. You're always looking for a guy that may be a QB-friendly, offensive-minded, or defensive route. What kind of fits the mold and what they have there? Obviously, all the young talent that we saw actually on display for the Falcons there. What is the type of guy that they need to find there?
You know, we saw the graphic, Brandon. They haven't had a winning season in 8 years. They went to the playoffs the last time in 2017, also the last time they had a winning season. We know about the year before when they went to the Super Bowl. Dan Quinn, defensive guy, took them to the Super Bowl. Raheem Morris, the most recent head coach. In between that, Arthur Smith was a hot young OC, offensive coordinator type, and it didn't work out. So I think at the end of the day, do you want someone like a Mike Vrabel, who is more of a team leader, get guys going, run through brick walls type situation? Or do you want that next Ben Johnson? The problem is there's only one Ben Johnson on planet Earth. Mike McDaniel was a hot coaching candidate for a season and a half, and then things went south in South Beach. But, you know, Clint Kubiak will be interesting because he has done a lot with offenses and quarterbacks young and old. Kevin Stefanski, I think, got a raw deal in Cleveland. I know he is well liked around the league for his ability to not only control a locker room, but to put guys in situations to have success. And if you're going into a situation that's a little more settled than Cleveland, for example, Stefanski could be a great answer there. And that's something to keep in mind. And then, of course, there's going to be the John Harbaugh conversation. He's going to be more of the overseer, the Mike Vrabel, Mike Tomlin type. But I actually think that Kubiak would be interesting, and even more than that, Stefanski might be the best choice for where they're trying to get to and how quickly they're trying to get there.
When you look at it, Ryan, of course, you heard Matt there saying they want to get the championships and championships and championships. You look at the NFC South and what that division has done. We saw with the Bucs it kind of falling off the wagon, the Panthers winning that division, and the Saints finding their way. How long might this take Matt Ryan there and others in trying to get maybe just at least to the top of the NFC South?
Yeah, and that felt like it would be a layup in recent years because the NFC South has historically been pretty wide open. We have teams winning the division with losing records, including the Carolina Panthers this time around. But the Panthers are on the up. I think Tampa Bay has a chance to bounce back if they can sign some guys and fix a few issues. They have Baker Mayfield going into the final year of his deal, so that'll be interesting. It looks like Kellen Moore is the dude for the Saints, and Tyler Shuck might be as well. So this suddenly becomes a pretty tall task. You know, we had similar conversations about the AFC South being wide open, and suddenly you have the Jacksonville Jaguars deciding to ball out. So the Atlanta Falcons could be in a situation, Brandon, where they're the third or fourth team in terms of the offseason predictions heading into 2026, where they rank in that division. So again, if you nail the head coach and GM and you figure out the quarterback situation, that changes things. But right now, there's so many questions that are still up in the air that it's hard to say that this is the second best team in this division, because right now they're third and maybe fourth, given how the New Orleans Saints finished that season and played so well down the stretch.
If you are the Atlanta Falcons, obviously you have some options that are already available, but is there a chance maybe, and we're just this for kicks and giggles, maybe a Matt LaFleur may come available, a Mike Tomlin, I know this is near dear to your heart, but maybe leaving Pittsburgh. Is this a position where you kind of wait for a guy like that, or you need to attack now and get this moving?
That's a great question. I think we'll know pretty quickly about Matt LaFleur's future. It sounds like he may be signing that extension in Green Bay, but you never know until the ink is dry. Both crazy conversations. Matt LaFleur has been really, really good. Has he made mistakes at times with games management in particular? Sure, but just look at the man's record. Mike Tomlin, that speaks for itself. The postseason has been a disaster, primarily because they don't have a franchise quarterback. If both those coaches were available, Brandon, yes, you are making a beeline to the front of the line to try to get those guys. I don't know if it's worth waiting for if you interview a guy like a Clint Kubiak or Kevin Stefanski or whomever, and you love that guy. That's the direction you need to go, because everything has to be singularly focused, and Matt Ryan's talked about that, and Arthur Blank hired the consulting firm to get them to that point. So if you're going to hold out for another guy, that sort of seems to go against what you're trying to do. And keep in mind, Arthur Blank didn't bring in Bill Belichick. He had that opportunity, and instead he went with Raheem Morris, who was very well regarded and still is, but coming over from the Rams, where he'd done such a good job there as defensive coordinator.
We'll see how that pans out there in the ATL with Matt Ryan. Of course, we'll be keeping a close eye as the family extends now in the ATL. I want to move over to Detroit because they interviewed Mike McDaniel, and we know what he brings in terms of that offensive mind. We saw that with the Dolphins. It's crazy. We're still not that far from those 70 points 2 years ago when we saw that offense looks crazy. Obviously not the case now, but how does he fit there if that is the case as the OC with the Lions?
Not only 70 points, Brandon, they scored 70 points against the Broncos, who were the number one seed in the AFC. It is, I mean, short-term memory, that feels like it was 20 years ago. But in terms of Detroit, I love this fit because Mike McDaniel can get back to what he does best, which is coordinating up offenses. He was the run game coordinator in San Francisco. We know that the Detroit Lions and Dan Campbell want to run the ball successfully. Ben Johnson made that a centerpiece of what he did in Detroit, now in Chicago. And I think if you can take all the other stuff off his plate, sometimes guys are really great coordinators and they're good or okay head coaches, and that's all right. You can be a really good coordinator and do that at a high level. We know John Morton didn't work out, and one of the concerns in both Philadelphia and Detroit, Brandon, was what was going to happen when the OCs for those respective teams moved on to take head coaching jobs. And in Detroit, it took about half the season for Dan Campbell to take over play calling duties. I think he's better served as sort of an overseer in the Mike Tomlin, Mike Vrabel role. Also, I like to make fun of him because when he's trying to read the play sheet, he's got his glasses down like grandma reading the menu at the Applebee's. I don't want to see that anymore either. I think Mike McDaniel is exactly what they need to continue to keep that running game going, with also the understanding of getting all those playmakers involved with Jared Goff.
Yeah, you got Sonic and Knuckles and then Amon-Ra St. Brown on the outside. That's just perfect for him there up in Detroit. We'll see how that pans out. I want to get back to last night and what we saw with the Steelers, of course, their postseason run ending once again, the 7th straight time getting in, but unable to win. Their first loss on Monday night in franchise history, but Mike Tomlin speaking after the game, maybe giving us some insight of his thoughts on what they couldn't or could do.
What's the message to the fan base after another disappointing one?
Again, when you don't get it done, words are cheap. It's about what you do or you don't do. And so I appreciate the question, but people talk too much in our business. You either do or you don't.
Well, Ryan, they didn't advance to the postseason. Once again, you know this very well. I know this is your bread and butter. This is how you feel about Pittsburgh every single year. But based on what Tomlin said right there, just out of curiosity, does it seem like the writing is on the wall for Tomlin maybe to walk away from Pittsburgh?
He's going to go probably on his own terms. I think he has 1 year left on his deal, maybe a couple years left. Look, I would be. Does he deserve to go on his own terms? No. You're in a bottom line business, and we say that each and every week when we see guys get cut, they get benched, they get traded. That extends to people in the front office as well. But the issue with the Steelers is this, and I just mentioned this, and we've sort of talked about it in this segment here. If you don't have a franchise quarterback, it's just smoke and mirrors. This 2025 Steelers team, they're the 40-year-olds at the gym that have been playing pickup basketball together since college for 20 years when they were Division I stars, and they can beat all the other 40-year-olds, and that's like the Cleveland Browns, a banged-up Ravens team. But when you go up against the 1992 Dream Team in their prime, which was the Houston Texans defense last night, you look like a bunch of 40-year-olds out there trying to make layups, and it got ugly pretty quickly. So they're built to win ugly against average teams. Without a franchise quarterback, you're not going to make deep playoff runs. And Big Ben retired, 4, 5, 6 years ago now. They've gone through a slew of quarterbacks, Kenny Pickett, Aaron Rodgers most recently, Mitch Trubisky at one point, and it predictably hasn't worked. It's not because of Mike Tomlin. And the other thing I'll say, Brandon, is this. Every time you talk to a Steelers player on or off the record, they tell you that Mike Tomlin is the best coach they've ever played for. So I think, to your previous point, if he were fired, I would set the over-under at 90 seconds before he got another job if he wanted one as a head coach. So sometimes change is good. I don't know if change is good because a bunch of fans are angry that the team didn't win a playoff game. It's gotten to the point. He's so good, Brandon. It's gotten to the point that we joke that he wins more games than he loses every single year. That's how good he's been for nearly 20 years in Pittsburgh.
Well, let me ask you this, just kicking the tires here, because we can say obviously the 18 years of one Super Bowl, a leader of men. We've heard that from you and others and analysts that we have on, but you could say the same about John Harbaugh. They showed him the door. Do you think there's a chance that the Steelers can do the same thing, just cutting ties and making it their decision instead of his?
They could, absolutely. The Steelers, and we've talked about this to death at this point now, they're known for stability. Only 3 coaches since 1969, of course, Chuck Nolan, Bill Cowher before Mike Tomlin. But absolutely, and we heard Mike Tomlin say it, we live in an age where people talk too much. People are sometimes too quick to make decisions. Again, the Steelers aren't typically like that, but things can change. I mean, when Kevin Colbert, the GM, retired and Omar Khan took over, they went from being a pretty steady-as-she-goes team in free agency and the draft in terms of trading up, and that all changed. We saw Omar get after it. They traded for DK Metcalf. They made a bunch of other moves. So nothing is off the table in today's NFL. Absolutely. And again, it's a bottom line business. If you're not winning and winning when the lights are brightest, there's every chance that you might be out of a job. So Mike Tomlin is not immune to that. Just as you noted, Jim Harbaugh wasn't. Jim Harbaugh came to Baltimore 1 year after Tomlin came to Pittsburgh in 2007. So at this point, And we talked about it, producer Tully and I, before we came on here. Your Dallas Cowboys, they said when Jerry Jones bought that team, they said to Tom Landry, here's your parade. Here's your cardboard box. Get your goal watch and go that way. So again, no one is immune to father time, as we like to say, and that certainly includes head coaches keeping their jobs no matter how long they've been there.
By the way, I agree with you that if he is out the door, he will find a job. I'm going to say 30 seconds. I'm going to beat your 90 by 60 seconds there based on that resume. We will see how that pans out for everybody, including our guy in Atlanta. Ryan Wilson's always tapping in. Appreciate your time on everything we just talked about in the NFL. Take a look at this. When it comes to that carousel, it's still moving. We're waiting to see who's going to replace the 8 guys that are now, of course, waiting for their next opportunity. We just mentioned there Raheem Morris, John Harbaugh, Pete Carroll, Jonathan Gannon, Brian Daboll, and of course now in Pittsburgh, we'll see what happens with Mr. Tomlin moving forward probably.